In other news tonight, the Higher Education Minister has placed the University of South Africa, that's Unisa, under administration after a damning report on the institution compiled by the independent assessor, Professor Themba Mosia, who's recommended that the council and management be relieved of their duties. Unisa professional ethics lecturer Mametlwe Sebei joins us now for reaction to the latest developments. A very good evening to you, sir. When we spoke to you a few months ago, you were not a fan of this report. Now, what it recommends will take effect to a hearing through this process of putting Unisa under administration. Will you support this process?
Well, let me put it this way. If anyone is sitting at home and hoping that, out of this process, the placement of Unisa under administration, dissolution of a council that, if you like other councils of the university, is at least based on democratic representation of the core constituencies of the universities, being workers, being academic staff, being students, being communities, that such, a bureaucratic appointment by government, which we should be very clear, is a government that is actually responsible for all the captures of the public institution, for collapse of all the state-owned entities. If they think this would leave university in a better position, they just have to look around. Which of the universities which have been placed under administration before have come out of it better off? You just have to look at what happened at UT, University of Limpopo, Mangosuthu University, Mangosuthu University of Mangosuthu Technical, I think that's a MUT. Now, all of those institutions have come out of these, similar appointments much more worse. And of course, this unfortunately is a tragedy that is waiting Unisa, which was beginning, in my view, beginning to turn around the situation, which is a legacy, as I've said, of what can only be called zoomification of the state. That is hijack of state-owned entities by a mediocrity, by corrupt, entrepreneurial elements that are subverting every public service across the state institutions. Of course, and I think these people, that is the minister and this government, was very much part of that.
But given the extent of the problems, the depth of not just the administrative problems, but also the breakdown in relations at Unisa, why would anything that's being done now be viable when you consider how the people in charge of the university itself, we're told, are just so divided and the air is so toxic that they can't seem to pull in the same direction? Why not bring in an outsider who can perhaps help?
In fact, the question we should be asking ourselves, is if, Unisa has been, because nobody knows the problems, right, that are there at Unisa. I mean, the corruption, the incompetence, and all of that. Now, these are legacy problems. Now, the question we need to be asking ourselves is, if Unisa has been going downhill for years, why only place it under administration just when the situation is beginning to turn around, as reflected by what? By every report that has been released quite recently in terms of commendations with regard to, a performance of the university, in terms of the Council of Higher Education Standards, with regard to improvement in terms of research, with regard to improvement in terms of its financial position. And I can tell you now, there are measures that are being, put in place to ensure that support for students, is being actually reinforced. I mean, we just got a memo that as of, the 1st of August, we should be rendering weekly courses or classes to support students to improve academic performance. This and many other measures are saying that this management was beginning to look at how to turn the situation decisively around. And I'm not convinced that this government under whose watch University of South Africa and many other universities and other state institutions have been going, compromised, that suddenly, just when somebody is beginning to act, they're intervening, they want to take university into administration, that their interest is the interest of defending the academic program and the integrity of the university. I'm convinced that this is part of the fight back against the attempt to clean the university of corruption, against the attempt to represent the university into a public institution that is very true to its mission of delivering a quality learning, but also an output in terms of research that is relevant to development of our communities and society.
Do you expect then that the administrator will face some resistance from the university community. You are on the campus. Is it your sense that the administrator will broadly not be welcomed?
Well, I mean, I don't want to comment on the person of the administrator that I do not know. But this much, I'm certain about. I do think that, the workers on campus, the students on campus should absolutely not place any faith in this government. If anything, they should insist that university should be returned to its democratic governance. That is to say that we need a proper and democratic re-election of council based on representatives of workers, based on representatives of students, and of course the academics as well as communities to ensure that this university is based on the democratic governance as well as people who know what this university is about, but also where is it going. This process, has this process failed before? Of course, it is very clear to me that in the past, council has been hijacked. It is very clear to me that mismanagement were partly outcome of this process, but that is not to say that a government-appointed administrator is going to be a solution. It just means that the workers' movement, the academic staff, and of course the student movement have to look and say, what type of people have we been sending to council?
But Mametlwe, if that was as easy as you're saying, if that was as easy as you are saying, sir, it would have been done already. The reality is it hasn't happened because there simply is either a reluctance or a straight-up rejection of moving in that direction, because if it was as easy as you say, then it would have happened already, no?
We've got to also have a sense of proportion there. And I mean, I'm the first to bemoan the state of universities. But let's be clear, Themba, right? Look at the public service at large. Universities are the only successful public institution compared to public healthcare institutions, compared to basic education, compared to state-owned enterprises. And what is it that set them apart? Is that unlike these other public institutions, where government appoint management and basically run the administration of those institutions, universities are unique in that they are autonomous, and therefore their governance is left to constituencies like students, like workers, like communities. And this is what has made these universities viable and sustainable, despite all the problems to which I argue they need to be addressed. I'm absolutely under no illusions about the challenges that face Unisa. I mean, the quality of learning, the issues around financial market administration, problems of governance, all of those problems need to be tackled. But I'm saying I place my faith in the democratic mass organizations of the students, of the workers, and I do believe that on the basis of conversations, within these sections of university community, we can be able to overcome this problem. Government-appointed administrators are only going to worsen the situation, and I think we have an experience of this kind of appointments, but also a direct government-run institutions in a form of ESCOM, in a form of SAA, and many other public service institutions that are collapsing today. Universities stand aside. Why? Principals are not appointed by government. Principals are appointed by councils. Okay. And I think these are the only institutions that are sustainable and viable, and for me, they give me and reaffirm my confidence in a democratic control of our public services.
At the end of this process, do you think that the VC, Professor Puleng Kabula, will remain in place, or will she be among those who have to go in order for Unisa to start a new chapter of progress?
I think my views on this have been, are very known, right? I do think that this VC has done a level best. I do think that this VC has been victimized for standing up against corruption, for trying to, clean up entrepreneurial interests that have captured university and subverted its mission. I do think that anything that suggests that she has to be removed, right, would be disingenuous. And I think that can only be part of the fight back by the corrupt elements that want to roll back in sourcing, that want to outsource more services, that want to create university a site of accumulation by a corrupt and parasitic capitalist and entrepreneurial interest in the university. And that is a call and a challenge to the workers and the student movement and communities to stand up and to fight back.
Mametlwe Sebei, good to speak to you. Ethics lecturer at the University of South Africa, Unisa, which we're hearing now the Higher Education Minister, Lady Nzimande, has set wheels in motion, if you will, for it to be placed under administration.